Tortuga, I know we're already a ways into this episode, and I know you're really excited about the 3 games that they have announced. So, outside of my speculation of what is this real MicroProse, what are the games they announced?
Oh, I'm excited by at least 2 of the 3 games. I didn't really know much about the third one, but we have, as you mentioned, Admiral Krapod is a visitor on our Discord, and they're going to release Task Force Admiral, which is, I think, this is, what is it based on? Task Force 1942 or something like that? It's similar to...
It looks similar to Task Force 1980, or 1982, Task Force 1942, but I don't think it's... I think that one was more focused on surface battles, and this one seems to be more focused on carrier battles.
That's true. This one does look very much like carrier battles. And I mean, okay, first of all, if you're listening to this podcast and you have not seen the trailers, go watch the trailers. They're like movie trailers. They're extremely high quality, and they will get you excited. I've watched each trailer for all 3 of these games probably 4 or 5 times. Maybe only 2 times for the third one, but the other one is Sea Power, which this is from the people who did Cold Water. Now, Cold Water was done by Killer Fish, which has split. And some of the people went to Sea Power, and some of the other people went to War of the Sea, which is going to be a Cold War... a Sea Power-like game, but for World War II. So...
Yeah, so Killer Fish split... the Cold Waters team split. I think 2 of the 3 folks are now doing Sea Power naval combat in the Missile Age, which is the game that's being published by MicroProse, and that's sort of what we're talking about here. And then that other game is just a sort of a World War II version of what looks like Cold Waters. Like, I think they're both using some of the same assets and code and all of that.
So I think the War of the Sea is going to be very similar to Sea Power in that you'll be controlling ships. So both of them are kind of like Jane's Fleet in that sense. But Sea Power, I would say that Sea Power retained the development talent. So it'll be interesting to see. I know that a lot of the assets are retained for War of the Sea if they want to use them. So anyway, but it's interesting. I mean, these are 2, I think they look great. We'll see how they play, but it's very exciting. It's a very exciting time to be in the wargaming community.
Oh my God! Now I'm just looking back at my conversation with Admiral Krapod, and I should have seen it coming. He even sent me a picture of his original disc set of Task Force 1942, which, by the way, was a MicroProse game, and says like MicroProse all over it. I'm just like, good God!
The hints were there. The clues were dropped.
The graphics on this is insane. On this game, it's gorgeous.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Both of them are gorgeous. But Cold Waters was a very good-looking game as well, so that's not surprising. They're using... I don't know if they're developing a new engine for it or not, but I will not be surprised to see good graphics. What I'll be very interested in seeing is how they translate what in Cold Waters was just basically a one-ship controlled action game into this tactical control of a fleet. That's true for both games, by the way. Sea Power, I think Sea Power will be more like Jane's Fleet Command, and Task Force Admiral will be much more... I don't think you'll be giving individual orders to individual ships as like a god's perspective. I think you'll be in the persona of an admiral, giving orders to, maybe vice admirals or rear admirals or whatever, and telling them to move here and do this, and you'll be able to watch that happen, but I don't know what level you'll be controlling. I don't think you'll be telling this carrier to turn 10 degrees to starboard or something like that. I don't know. I mean, we don't know. We've only seen some gameplay snippets that they've done for the trailers, and that's extremely good looking, like very artistically well done trailer stuff, but I haven't seen gameplay yet, and I don't think anybody has.
Yeah, so. I think I'm really excited about Task Force Admiral. I also think that the 2 games have a very different and interesting approach. So Sea Power and the Missile Age, I assume, will be similar to Cold Waters, where there will be kind of like a dynamic campaign aspect to things. But Task Force Admiral is very deliberately going more in a scenario-based, operational scenario-based approach. So it's not like the whole Pacific is open to you like, was it Victory at Sea tried to do? which I think that's probably a smart approach. Like, I think sometimes games try to bite off too much and aren't able to really effectively do what they're trying to do. But I'm really excited to see what they do with Task Force Admiral. Also, they are calling it Task Force Admiral Volume 1 on their website.
Oh.
So that implies there will be more. Because I think they're primarily looking at the combat in 1942, when things were, I think it's like, isn't it focused more of like in the South? Is it Midway or is it after Midway? But I know it's sort of like up to a certain point in 1942, and that's kind of where they cut it off. And so presumably, there'd be follow-on volumes for other portions of the war.
And then the last game is what was it called? Second Front.
Yeah, that's the game I know less about. So
this is supposed to be what is it? Advanced Squad Leader, ASL. So I guess there's an abbreviation for this in the wargaming community, ASL, which means Advanced Squad Leader type game. This is very
I thought it meant something else.
ASL 14F whatever. Anyway, this is supposed to be
so that was your
to
thing,
Steel Panthers.
Okay. Anyway,
Steel Panthers. This is a little bit like Steel Panthers, is to give you a reference point for this. So there hasn't been a good Steel Panthers game. Has there been a good successor to it since? I don't know. I only know I've seen people playing WinSPWW2, and I was like, what the hell is that? Oh, it's Windows Steel Panthers World War II. So there's
aren't they making a new Steel Panthers? Isn't Matrix making a new one?
2x3 is making Steel Tigers, which is will be developed. Well, they say last I saw was 70% feature complete, but they'll be working on that only after War in the East 2 finishes. So there's probably a ways to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
lots of exciting things, man. This is really exciting time.
I'm really curious. So, I'm not going to lie. The thing that I was really looking forward to was I want a strategic bomber game that gives me the sense that it is actually the strategic bombing campaign of World War II and not some whittled down, hollowed out experience. But I think the thing that makes me most excited about MicroProse, because I know, Jean, you said that MicroProse was your go-to strategy game company, which I had a very different recollection of MicroProse, and I think you heard it in my responses, is that, to me, the games that I think of when I think of strategy games were SSI and Sierra. Sierra doing Civil War Generals 2 and Fast Attack, and SSI doing basically everything else. But when I thought of MicroProse, what I thought of MicroProse was simulation games, typically flight simulation games. And that's just because of the games I played, right? They obviously had a huge catalog of games, and you played different games than I did. But I guess what I'm hoping is that maybe they bring some balance. I'm really excited about the 3 games that they've mentioned here, but I really hope they've got some World War II flight sims where I'm behind a stick and I'm flying around. But I want it to be something that's a little bit more approachable than DCS. I want it to still feel like a simulation, but one of the things that I feel like MicroProse games generally did, even though the more limited ones like B-17 The Mighty Eighth, is they made you feel like you were part of a bigger world, that there was a lot going outside of your world, and that wasn't just you and your cockpit, something that I don't think DCS does a good job of at all. And so I'm really hoping that if MicroProse is really coming back, and that this is, a big deal, that they start rolling out some flight sims or some different types of simulation games where it feels like you're part of a bigger world. And I see some of that at least in 2 of the games that they've announced. Task Force Admiral and Sea Power, but that's my hope. My hope is that we get a new European Air War, that we get a new something similar to Falcon 4.0, but that it's not so overly complex, and that the learning curve isn't so huge that I don't have to, I don't want to have to spend 40 hours to figure out how to get off the ground. I'm probably exaggerating there a little bit, but I think the rivet counters, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I know there's a lot of flight sim folks out there who take, they want to learn how to actually fly the aircraft they're flying, and that's fine. But I do feel like the rivet counters have kind of walled off flight sims in general, so that what we have today are either super arcadey, joke of a flight game, or oh my god, you put the rivet in the wrong spot on the wing, and therefore that plane is, I'm not even going to play this game. I don't want another DCS. I probably want something similar to IL2, but with like a MicroProse world around it. And I just don't think that there's very many games out there that do that today, that don't just feel like you're flying one mission that has no connection to anything else. So I hope they bring that, and they bring a little bit of balance to the simulation community.
I personally would love to see another Silent Service game that basically would become the good version of Silent Hunter 5. There's so many other games that we could look forward to.
I'm looking for their strategy side because, they're the ones that made Master of Orion and then, that Birth of the Federation game. I'm hoping for a sequel to Birth of the Federation